Good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to one of our live panel discussions from the JeopardyFan.com. I'm Andy Saunders. I will be your host for this evening, and joining our panel this week, we have some contestants from both Jeopardy and Sports Jeopardy from this past week. First up from Sports Jeopardy, the episode 13 champion, Andrew Hard. We also have Kurt Fritschke, I believe. Is that a correct pronunciation? Am I good?
Very close, Fritchie.
Fritchie, okay. Sorry about that. We also have returning to the panel the founder of the JeopardyFan.com, Jeannie Kenkel, as well as David Kendall. He is a moderator over at JBoard. Starting things off, I don't have much in the way of public service announcements, so we might as well get straight into it. We always start off with Sports Jeopardy when we have a contestant from the show on our panel. So, Andrew, you won this past week. Congratulations on your victory. Let's see. First up, that buzzer is pretty tough, isn't it? You spent most of the first segment. I think you rang in once.
That's right. Yeah, I only had one question that I was able to ring in on before the interview segment, and I think what I was doing was just coming in too early, and I got locked out for that quarter second. It was especially tough in that first category when it was NFL nicknames, and John had control of the board, and the first clue was so short, sweetness. And obviously, I knew that. I'm sure Jeff knew it too, but controlling the board, John was able to just get in really, really quickly on that one and on the next one. So I was in a little bit of a funk just mentally for those first few questions, and it took me until the second half of Single Jeopardy to really get my timing down.
So I'm guessing at the break, the contestant coordinators came out to you and they were like, "You're coming in early," or "You're..."
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They came in, they kind of want us all to do well, so she came in and she goes, you're a little early on the buzzer. You're getting, the answer. You're getting locked out for a quarter second. Just try to time it off the board, time it off Dan's voice, and you'll get the hang of it.
Okay. So, I mean, you had a very good... Sorry, go ahead, David.
I was saying, do they give you some practice solo with the buzzer during the break when they do that?
It's not during the break, but before we got called up to tape, we had an opportunity to get up there for about 10 questions or so and practice ringing in easier questions so that we'd be able to get them and get our timing down. But obviously it's different when you're up there in the lights with Dan talking to you and you know it's for real.
Yeah.
So it seemed like Jeff was a bit of a free spirit, so to say, in the game. There seemed to be a lot of things that they were unable to cut out, and there were things that they were able to cut out. It seems like his interview was very short. Did you want to shed any light on that, Andrew?
So he made a point of saying that I'm from Los Angeles, and in his introduction, the way Kelly read it in, he wanted to make sure it was noted that he is a USC Trojans fan. He wanted it to be known that he was not a UCLA fan.
Oh,
and
yeah.
During his interview, he corrected Dan at one point. The spelling of the school, he said, was FUCLA.
Oh.
Ooh.
Wow.
So that was the part they had to cut out. They taped over it pretty smoothly. But if you watch it again, you'll notice at the end of his interview, Dan seems a little put off, and the audience is kind of cringing a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Don't correct Dan. Don't correct Alex. That's the rule.
Andrew,
Yeah,
I was
especially not with profanity.
behind the wife there, behind Jeff's wife, and she had her head in her hand. She was so embarrassed about it.
Oh.
By the way, Terrence Jordan, last week's Sports Jeopardy champion, has joined our panel as well. So
Yeah, that was my fault. I didn't get him the link till after we started, so sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
But yeah, it sounds like he was a bit of a free spirit. I suppose with reference to a one question that I don't feel comfortable mentioning the answer to, mainly because I've been requested not to. What's along those lines, segueing out of that? What's the most hilarious incorrect answer you've ever seen on the show? This is for the entire panel, I guess. Sports Jeopardy, Jeopardy.
What's a hole's got to be up there?
What?
What's a hole?
Oh, yes, I know that one.
That's pretty famous.
Yeah.
The Threesome by Kara Spack, I think it was. What's the Threesome?
Yeah, she said that one. Yeah.
There was one from the international tournament from the mid '90s that I remember well. Foreign anatomy. If a Japanese Isha doctor asks you to stick out your shita, he means this. And the poor, I can't remember if it was Boris from Israel or Per Gunnar from Norway, but Michael Daunt was the Canadian third contestant. It was Per Gunnar who said, "What is your behind?" And
that question was just asking for trouble. It sounds like.
Yeah.
It sounds like they were trolling for an answer, and.
There was one that Bill Ptolemy, I don't know if you remember him, but there was a category about from A to B, like it was an A city and then a B city, and it was supposed to rhyme, like the clue specified it was supposed to rhyme, and one was a capital city.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember this, but he was like, what is Annapolis and Annapolis? He said that for a daily.
I just saw that episode recently. It's Austin to Boston, and he was from Austin.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
and he said, Annapolis to Benapolis. I don't know. It was kind of silly.
It was. I like that one too.
What about when? Do you remember the contestant that spelled the word Euro because she wasn't sure how to pronounce it? She spelled it twice, or she said it twice and then finally spelled it.
Did she? I assume she got credit for that one though.
Yeah,
right?
she did. She did. Yeah. Yeah.
So it looks like by my records that both Andrew and Terrence, you guys are not in the running for the $50,000. There are some higher scores out there. I think third place is, by my records, still Niraj Joshi at 16,998, which is actually still quite low for third place, considering we're a quarter of the way through the season. And I thought we'd have a few people over 25 at this point. Does it surprise you that the scores have been so low?
It's a little surprising. It's part of when you're up there going into the strategy of Final Jeopardy. You're looking at those numbers. They put the three up there, and you're looking at that going, all right, well, even if I double up and win this episode, there's in case there were 18 more that needed to be taped. It really just wasn't worth the risk. But it surprised me when I went in that they were so low, but the guy who taped before me and Terrence is the one who's still up at the high bar. So we saw what it would take to actually get up to that number.
I'd be surprised if even Nikhil, who got the 29,000 or so, I'll be surprised even if his number holds up. I'll bet everybody that makes it ends up above 30 probably. I look at it kind of like the people that go last have a bit of an advantage, almost like last licks in baseball or something. You know what you have to beat. So if you're one of those last few episodes and the number's out there, it would probably be well worth the risk to go for it because there's nobody else to follow you. So you can go true daily double. You could bet it all on Final Jeopardy and know that if you get it, you'll be in that spot.
How many episodes are there?
There are 50 total, one a week for the whole year, and then the last two episodes are it's like a two-part, the Tournament of Champions that they'll have. So
I know it's one a week, but I didn't think, wow, 50. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
the whole.
Sorry, I found something
I know
curious.
Somebody who's already gotten the call for the next round of taping, so I know there's still people to be taped.
Yeah, they taped.
Sorry,
Andrew, how many did they do? Maybe 20 when we were there. I think there were 4 days of 5 episodes each, and so they
Okay.
still got more than half to go. I think
Okay.
they do taping in January, and then
Yeah,
in
this guy's
April.
taping in January. That told me about it.
I think there'll be an April taping also, Jeannie. That's what they said when we first did the audition, that they'll have 3 taping sessions, with the last one being in April.
Okay.
good to
Where
know.
did you audition, Andrew?
I was in Dallas,
Okay.
which I'm not sure which number that was. But they had told us about all the auditions that they had gone to beforehand, so sort of made us think that there were only a few slots that would be available. That one Dallas audition, or I guess there were 2 Dallas auditions in the same day.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Now, one thing I heard you mention, they actually have posted the so you go in knowing what the top scores are already.
Yeah, they've got a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
paper
they've
on the podium there.
Hmm.
So, like when you wager on Final Jeopardy, you've got those scores as a reference, and I think they also had it on the board, kind of out of sight, almost where our own scores were. That you always see contestants looking up towards the left. I always wondered what they were looking at before I ever got on the show, and now that I've been on it, I know that they're looking at the actual scores of the game. That's where they see it, but you also see the top 3 overall scores there also.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I guess why not if the future, like the people taping in January and April, are going to have some idea anyway.
Yeah, it's just like the regular show.
Yeah.
They kept it current, so like I went right after Nikhil, who put up I think 29,001, and they updated the sheet, and they had his score up there when I taped, so it was real time.
Okay. Huh.
So yeah, I guess you're probably going to see the people at the end. How I think I can agree with that, knowing this information, that the people closer to the end are probably going to be the ones in the final, especially with the if they're aware of the scores, or at least you'll see more aggressive play closer to the end.
Yeah.
I would think so. Yeah, I think if I was towards the end and knew there weren't many people left, I probably would have been going for the gusto a little more. But I think Andrew will agree with me. We're not complaining that we got the first calls, that we made it on and got a shot to win. So I've got no regrets about it.
Yeah, I'm all right already having it under my belt. I'll take the 5,000 and risk a chance of anything higher than that.
Yeah, and I think having to wait a few months to get the call would have been torture. I only waited like 10 days or something to get the call, and
Wow.
I gave myself an ulcer anyway, so
Yeah.
getting a few months of that would have been rough.
Yeah. Huh.
Okay, I think we're safe to move on to the regular shows now. A couple things. I would say I know David and I were talking about this a little bit before we went on air, but seemed like a very normal week of Jeopardy, to be honest with you. Not too much came out, at least the latter part of the week. The early part of the week had some interesting stuff that we talked about last time, and I'll get to that a little bit with this panel, but a couple of things I noticed. I know that rooks like to talk a lot outside of the clues of the game. I know some people on Jboard referred to it as extraneous chatter. How do we feel about that? Are we okay in general with contestants talking a bit and showing some personality outside of the just answering questions in the interview segment?
I don't know about the general public, although as you mentioned, Jboard kind of has, at least a few Jboard people have kind of weighed in on it, but I think the pertinent thing here is that Maggie and the contestant coordinator seem to kind of like these people with personality and chattiness. That seems to be what they like. That seems to be what the producers like, and all those executive people. That's what they seem to like. Whether it's what the fans like, it's debatable. Some do, some don't. But that seems to be what the producers and the contestant coordinators and everybody likes. That's contestants with personality.
Kurt, what do you think?
Well, two things. I think, for one, that was really a reflection of who Rooks was. I got to know her in the contestant pool, and she was really genuine. What you saw was what you got with her. I think a bit of it, too, was just that's how she dealt with her nerves, was just to give those extra comments and talk it out a little bit on stage. And I'm okay with it, except for if I'm a contestant or a viewer who really likes to see the board cleared and the extra bits of chatter and long naming of the categories keep all the clues from being revealed, then I feel a little bit cheated. I don't know if it really got to that point with her and her games. I don't remember exactly how they played out, but I know when I was on there, I was mindful of keeping it moving as quickly as possible because I know I wanted to see all the clues to have the best chance I could of racking up some points. So I don't mind it. I think someone with a personality is more engaging than someone who's completely wooden and robotic, but as long as it doesn't delay the game.
I think that's a good way of putting it, basically. I think we did, in fact, lose a daily double on Monday, which is actually a rare occurrence. I think that hasn't happened in a few months, but other than that...
I'm definitely of the camp 61 or bust. They always seem to have a way to have each and every one of the clues during the tournaments, and I guess this is due to the magic of editing. They edit out the contestant chat. They might edit out the credits roll a little bit. And personally, I feel that they can find a way to do that in the regular games too. But I guess if they like the extraneous chatter, if that comes at the sake of a few clues or even a daily double, so be it. They're not going to edit it out.
Okay. Speaking, you mentioned the post-credits chatter. We're seeing that after every Sports Jeopardy episode now, and we saw a few of them on YouTube after the Tournament of Champions. Do we think the show should start airing the post-game interviews on the actual show?
You mean like the part with Trebek?
Yes, the part with Trebek.
You didn't see those, Jeannie, on the Jeopardy YouTube channel? They were showing some of them, I guess, during the Tournament of Champions, although I kind of remembered them as regular games, but I guess they were Tournament of Champions games.
Yeah, I heard about it. I saw it on Twitter, but I never watched any of them.
They're actually quite interesting. You should go back and watch.
Them because I like the behind-the-scenes kind of stuff, so that kind of stuff is really into my interest in the show, seeing exactly what they're talking about. And of course, as you mentioned, Sports Jeopardy does that mainly because they don't really have a credits roll because they're on Crackle. They can do that. They don't have to put it aside for local news or whatever the heck it is that regular Jeopardy has. But I like the fact that Jeopardy does that, and I wish they would do that more. It kind of gives an extra insight into the show.
I think it would be fun to see, but probably not to actually air it because, like we're just talking about, they're kind of low on time anyway, where you're missing out on clearing the full board and everything. So maybe putting it online is a good solution for it, so people can still see this behind the scenes and get a little more of everybody's personality, but still have the game hopefully in its entirety being aired.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if they air it, the affiliates wouldn't like that because that's always when they run like the news promos or something like that. But yeah, putting it online was the best solution, and I wish they'd do that more, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's a good solution. And I don't know what he usually talks about with contestants. I know during the first show that I was on, he was kind of good-naturedly chiding us about our movies and how stupid we were for picking which year. And, no, that one was in 1941. That wasn't even close. And this one was, so he was kind of ribbing us about what we didn't know. So I don't know if that makes compelling viewing for people, but it was interesting nonetheless.
Speaking of that first final Jeopardy you faced, one thing that was brought up on J-Board was the fact that It's a Wonderful Life, the work it was based on, was published under a couple of different titles, also The Greatest Gift. Was that confusing at all to you, Kurt, or was it just a matter of you weren't really sure, and the fact it was taped well outside the holiday season, so you weren't really in the holiday thinking mood, or?
I'll tell you, and I'll warn you, this might get a little bit long-winded, but I had read Bob Harris's book, Prisoner of Trebekistan, when he made mention of knowing your taping date or knowing the air date for your episode and thinking about what topical categories might come up. And so I was aware that it was late December. But all of the previous Final Jeopardies, I was that was the 7th show that I was in the contestant pool for. I went through day 1, didn't get chosen, so I'd seen 5 shows day 1 and 2 more shows day 2. None of the other Final Jeopardy questions, or even really anything on the board, had been holiday themed up to that point. So I really wasn't keyed into the idea that they might throw a holiday themed final answer or Final Jeopardy question. Had they put the word holiday in there, this holiday film, I'm sure that would have triggered all 3 of us, but the removal of that is what made it a true Final Jeopardy question.
Mm-hmm.
They really have to toe the line on a lot of those about if you put in this word, then it makes it too easy. If you leave it out, it makes it too hard. So yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I was looking for holiday categories and they didn't come up, and then I really didn't think Final Jeopardy was the place that they were going to put that out there. So I got about 15 seconds in when the music turns around on itself and said, I got to start writing something. And it was funny because the day before in the contestant briefing, Maggie had talked to us about careful pronunciation and had mentioned the name of Aminejad. And, you know, funny enough, it came up in one of the games. It was one of the games where Peter gave the response. And she had also mentioned to us the difference between Invisible Man and The Invisible Man. And I thought, well, what the hell? Maybe this will be a lucky coincidence that something she said in the contestant room appears on the board again. So I threw it out to chance, and I figured, well, it's half a decent answer because, you know, someone who's invisible might be like they were never born. I really never got there to the whole holiday movie thing, and I've only ever seen It's a Wonderful Life once, so that's not one that has a strong recall for me.
Okay.
So there's my long answer.
Make it almost impossible then.
Yeah, I mean, once he said it, was like, oh crap, that's right. The angel shows him what it's like if he was never born. But that lot of good it did me after the reveal, right?
That's one of those that is easier for us being in the holiday season than it is for you being a couple months removed from the holiday season. We had one of those a few weeks ago, and I know I mentioned it on the panel too. And they throw those out every now and then to make it easier for the viewers rather than the people who are removed from that situation from a few months.
Yeah, well, lucky for me, my fellow contestants did not also clue into that it might be a holiday movie.
Yeah.
Okay, now moving on a bit, I guess. I know last week we had a well, with the Sony hack, there was some delays in getting the contestant photographs out to the contestants. I presume you got yours this past week, Kurt?
I got it at 1 o'clock on the day that my episode was airing.
Whoa.
So I raced to the computer, put it up on Facebook and on Twitter, and I was a happy camper. It was just in time to pump up a little bit of, I don't know, viewership or something on my timeline and spur some interest. So I felt bad for my fellow contestants, but for me it was quite timely, and I sent Glenn an effusive thank you almost immediately.
I had the same experience. Didn't get mine until the day of taping this past Wednesday. And there was a picture that I was able to take from Crackle.com. It didn't have my name on it, but it just said Houston, Texas, and it was that baseball card cut out of my head. So I was able to use that as promo, but it was a little bit fuzzy. It was nice getting the high-res stuff, and then, of course, the picture with Dan Patrick immediately became my Facebook cover picture. Probably been there for a long time.
Same with me.
I'm wondering how you got that one, Andrew, the baseball card one, because I had told them that you hadn't gotten yours yet. That's what you told me. Then I went on Facebook and I saw you had that picture up. I was like, oh crap! I guess I lied to them. But yeah, you took it up the site.
It was just from cool. But I had emailed Amy just to see if I was going to get them prior to the air date, but it didn't come until like that afternoon.
Yeah, prior to that, I had gone and downloaded a high-res version of the Hometown Howdies video and screen capped it and tried to find the one frame where I wasn't mid-speaking and looked completely weird, where it showed my name, and I had used that and had talked to some of the other contestants I kept in touch with, said, here's what I'm going to do, and they did the same thing. I know Ryan, captain from the Army, he did the same thing where he screen capped it and put it up on his Facebook page as the next best thing.
Yeah, I think the Sony hack has been has had some collateral damage to the to our favorite television program, and I think that's disappointing. Another thing I noticed, I feel as though the writers can get a little bit sophomoric at times with their category naming. Do we think it's past, category titles like a little T and A? Do we think that those are kind of past their sell-by date?
I noticed Kurt kept going back to that one.
Two reasons there. One, I'm a wordplay guy, and of the categories that were on the board, that was where I thought I had my best chances, and I was definitely daily double hunting there. I only got one of the four, though. But I liked that better than the Civil War and Women Poets, Hear Me Roar. I can't remember what the others were, but of all of those, that's where I thought my chances were best for scoring points.
Okay.
Probably didn't help that one of your fellow contestants was a history teacher going up against a Civil War category.
Yeah, that sucked.
But I know that the age of the average Jeopardy viewer is deceased, to quote the old joke. So with the risque humor, well, of course it doesn't matter to us younger folk. I don't know how it appeals to the average Jeopardy viewer. Not that there's some dirty old ladies out there who like that kind of stuff.
There was a Sports Jeopardy episode, I believe it was the one that aired before Terrence's, that was full of pictures of UFC models. And I wonder if Dan Patrick joked that he wanted to get those girls back in the studio for later tapings.
I remember that one.
Oh yeah, I saw that too.
I thought
think
that was pretty
the very
bold.
first episode, wasn't it?
Maybe that was it. I can't remember if it was if I was in studio or if I was watching it on Crackle. But yeah, it's I don't know. That's the kind of thing in Sports Jeopardy. I figured they'd take a few more risks with things like that were very male centric and sophomoric humor, and I guess I haven't really seen that to be the case so far.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was a little surprised Dan went for that cheap shot, but whatever.
Well, I think it doesn't surprise me that he would. I think that they could probably stand to maybe be a little bit more feminist with some of their choices and less degrading of women in that respect. Speaking of degrading to women, Twitter can be very negative towards people. I know we discussed Beth Ford Roth's article on XOJ and on last week's panel, and of course we had the discussion of how, has Twitter improved since 2011. And then on Wednesday, we see Twitter's comments towards Anne did not seem very positive. Things like, oh, look, it's Blossom's half-sister. And it's like, this is awkward, this is not good. Twitter's back to 2011 again. And I figure for the panel, I will ask, let's try to turn this around. What's the most positive thing a stranger said to you after your appearance on Jeopardy for the people who've been on? That's most of us on the panel.
Well, I had a guy, I didn't know who it was because his Twitter account was like a business name, but he said, good job from a longtime fan or something like that. Like a fan since kindergarten, I think is what he said. And I had to do some homework to figure out who that was. It took a lot of effort. My sister helped me, but we finally figured it out. So that was a pleasant surprise that somebody from grade school saw me on Jeopardy.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing. I don't talk to him ever or anything, so that was weird.
I had a similar experience this week. The night my first episode aired, I received a message from someone on Facebook, and I couldn't place the name at all. And I thought, I wonder who this is. And it turns out it was my kindergarten teacher.
Wow.
He recognized me from literally about 35 years ago and reached out to say hi. And I thought that was just incredible.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yep.
Has there been... Sorry, go ahead, Terrence.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I don't know if there were a lot of people coming out of the woodwork to congratulate me or anything outside of the people I already know, but I got a a friend request on Facebook, and I'm like, I swear I don't know this guy. He's local here, but I never heard him. I asked my wife, I'm like, do you know who this is? She's like, no. And he works at a place that's basically like a competing company to my wife. So I'm like, oh, I don't know what this is. So I sent him a message. I said, hey, maybe I'm crazy, but I don't think I know you. Can you tell me where I know you from? He goes, oh, actually, it was an accident. I sent you a friend request. I watched your Sports Jeopardy episode and did a search for you, and I must have accidentally sent a friend request, so you could disregard it. I was like, oh, okay.
Do you guys who have been on the show, do you think that your feedback from Twitter and Facebook and all that have been more positive than negative?
I would say so. There hasn't been a whole lot coming my way. My episode generated comments that were based on one particular answer during the game. So there was definitely some commentary about one of my fellow contestants. It's been positive towards me, but there's nothing that really stands out just in terms of people saying bad or good things.
I think we're flying under the radar pretty much. It's definitely not nearly as big an audience as the regular show.
Yeah. I avoided Twitter the week that I was on, or especially, I didn't look for anything anyway. I mean, I responded to people that tweeted me, but I didn't want to know anything that was said about me on Twitter, so I hardly saw anything.
That's probably for the best. I know, Andy, you're what you started this with was, is Twitter getting better, or how can we make it better? And I think that's probably a futile hope that Twitter's probably not going to improve a whole lot. There's going to be plenty of negative stuff. I mean, you could get positive too, but if you're hoping to eradicate all the bad things, it's probably a waste of time.
Yeah.
You need out of that box.
Yeah.
Yeah, Twitter's about as bad as it gets for false bravado, I've found. People will spew any 160 characters that they feel like because really, what's the worst that can happen to them?
Mm-hmm.
And it's...
Yeah, in the Tournament of Champions that Buddy Wright was in, he used to be active on Twitter, and he retweeted somebody making a negative comment about him, and I made the mistake of responding to that person like, hey, you weren't on the show ever, and he's in the Tournament of Champions. Well, then she responded back. This was well before I was going to be on the show, and it was like really snotty, like, oh, you're going to lose too, or something like that, and then I wound up losing. So, but she never knew that, I'm sure. But people are just nasty on Twitter.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I received far more congratulatory messages and encouragement from people near and far that I knew and people I see at work and at church, and that's what makes it worth it, the people who really do care, the people who know you, the people who care, the people who tune in to watch and cheer, and I get messages from people, we're jumping out of our chairs, and so that's to me what made it worthwhile. I don't care what anybody says negative.
Right. Yeah. It's an amazing feeling,
I'd be the same way. Like, I had a viewing party for my episode, and I own a couple FedEx routes. That's what they said. I'm a small business owner, and the viewing party basically consisted of a couple friends that are local and all the people out of my route that I've been telling about the show since I taped. Like, obviously not giving away any details, but they were all excited for it, and we had a pretty good turnout of just people that I've become friendly with out on the route. So it's pretty cool seeing their reactions to it, especially with the way it ended and everything. So yeah, like Kurt said, that's what matters more is just your family and friends, what they thought of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. I didn't get any negative feedback from anybody that I knew personally. I mean, everybody was warm and excited. It was great.
I did have almost everybody I knew ask me how the hell none of us knew The Undertaker.
Oh.
I didn't know that one either. I don't know any wrestling, so when I was in the audience, I'm like, I don't know.
That was a wrestling. For some reason I thought it was a UFC question, and when I saw that, it's like, oh, that's a wrestling question.
Oh.
Yeah, I think Brock Lesnar crossed over. And
yeah, I didn't really realize that, but I saw Brock Lesnar, and I just went, and I just I threw a guess out there just when watching just to see it, and it's like, ugh. I didn't think that was the a wrestling question, but
yeah, I guess if anything, I felt I felt bad a little bit when I checked in on J-Board and, all the people there were, how could they get a triple stumper on It's a Wonderful Life? Like, didn't know it,
That's
dude.
J-Board.
That was a hard clue. There's no doubt about it. I mean,
Yeah. A lot of the people on there have Andy, I'm sorry, and David, I'm sorry, but some of the people come across with a bit of a holier-than-thou attitude.
I completely agree.
So it's, it is what it is, but I figured if I didn't have anybody raging at me, I probably did okay.
I think anybody that hasn't been on the show, it's real easy to say, oh, I got this many from my couch, or this was my score, and it really is. I mean, anybody that hasn't been on it, that would be the first thing I say to them, is it's so much different standing up there. You got the lights on you, the pressure, there's the audience, you got Dan Patrick or Alex Trebek there. It's a whole different ballgame. I mean, when you're sitting in the comfort of your own home, you could come up with plenty of answers, but it's a lot different with the pressure on. So that would be the first thing I say to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier when there's only one person ringing in at home.
Got to buzz in.
say that again, Andrew?
However many you think you know at home, just divide it by 3 because you got 2 contestants to compete against the buzzer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I was telling people. It's like, I knew more than you saw me ring in on. I knew a lot more. I just couldn't get in. Buzzer beaten by really good competitors.
Yep.
I'm actually looking forward to whenever I get the call, taking what I actually answered and comparing that to the Koreats that I've been tracking over the past 4 or 5 years, and humbling myself as it was.
Yeah.
That's one thing I found funny on Twitter. I actually joined Twitter about when Sports Jeopardy started, just to see what people were saying about it, like what kind of buzz it was getting and everything. And it seems like the most common messages you see are people saying, oh, I ran this category, put me on the show, I would wreck this show. And I don't respond to them because I know it's pointless, but I'm just thinking like, oh, this guy has no idea. You got to buzz in, you got to beat everybody to it, you got the pressure of it. You probably wouldn't do nearly as well as you think you would.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's totally luck of the draw with the categories, the quality of the competition you draw. I mean, I saw a couple other episodes while I were out there where some of the competitors just weren't up to their A game that day and were virtually a non-factor. And, man, I would have loved to have had that in some of my games. I was up against 2 really good competitors in my first one and 1 really good competitor in my second one. And sure would have been nice to have a couple of bumps on a log while I racked up a lockout game, but I'm still really, really thankful for the experience. It was a chance of a lifetime, and so glad I did it.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you get to call yourself a Jeopardy champion, and no one can take that away from you. So.
Oh yeah, that's always the biggest prize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a nice thing to have on one's resume, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think we're getting to the point where I check to make sure that nobody has emailed in any questions or tweeted in any questions. Do any panelists have any questions for any of the other panelists at this point?
Well, I wanted to bring up, it's late December now. We know that normally the the online tests for Jeopardy happen in early January. I can't remember from previous years when they've normally talked about the online test, but I haven't heard anything about them. I'm just wondering if maybe the Sony hack might have affected that or what.
Oh.
Well, I certainly haven't heard anything in general about it. I know that back when there was a time when the online test was late January as opposed to mid-January, so I would say there's still some time to worry about it before we really start worrying about it, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Sony hack had something to do with it.
Yeah, I don't remember a whole lot of warning in past years, maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the test went live.
Mm-hmm.
I remember putting it on the calendar for like 1 week later or something like that. But who's to say? I would not be surprised if the Sony hack threw a wrinkle in plans this year.
Yeah. David, did you pass the test last time? I guess not, right?
I think David's having some technical difficulties at the moment.
Okay.
Well, do you ever really know if you passed? I mean,
I'm back. What were you asking, Jeannie?
Oh, just if you are taking the test again, or if you're in the pool. I don't think you're in the pool, right?
No, I'm not. I'm not in the pool. I've never gotten an audition invite yet, but I do definitely plan on taking the test again.
Okay.
Last year was the first time I actually got 35 on a test, so this year is probably I could get more, but again, it's the luck of the draw too. I might get 50 out of 50 and still not get called because they might not draw my name.
Oh.
Well, if I understand correctly, it's something of a lottery process to get to an
Yes.
audition. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, it was luck this year to get picked for an audition.
How many times did you take the test, Kurt?
I would say this was probably at least my third time trying.
Okay.
And each time I kind of felt like maybe I felt like I was on the cusp.
Mm-hmm.
You know, somewhere in the 35 to 40 range. Never really quite sure.
Yeah.
But
Was it
this
always
was
online that you took it?
Yeah, always online.
Okay.
But this was the first and only time I was invited to an in-person audition.
Okay. And it worked out.
Yes, it
It
did.
really did, yeah. I could talk about that some other time.
Okay, so we're at about the 40-minute mark, and which is usually about the time I stop the broadcast and finish up for the week. So I'd like to thank everyone who tuned in tonight, and also to our panelists, Terrence, Kurt, Jeannie, David, and Andrew. Once again, I'm Andy Saunders. We'll be back at some point next weekend to discuss next week's episodes of Jeopardy and Sports Jeopardy. I presume they are going to be releasing episodes of Sports Jeopardy on New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve. So, have we heard anything? Have we heard anything different about that? Or
Yeah, unless I'm pretty positive they'll be on because the plan was to have 50 episodes for the first year and then the 2 for the final. So yeah, I think they should be airing. I hope so. I'll be checking.
Okay, sounds good. So, once again, thank you for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much, and have a good night.